So images, using images and how to get images by going to Pixel or the internet, download an image and you put the location where the image is being found inside your project folder. Work on it. Image consideration, yes, they have different kind of image consideration that you have to be looking at. We have different kind of image. We have the JPEG image, which is Joint Photographic Electronic Group. We have the PNG kind of images, which is images without background, which is photograph network group, yes, PNG. Then we have SVG, which is scalable vector graphics. All those ones are different kinds of images, yes. But in terms of mobile apps and websites, SVG images tends to be like more sharper than compared to all these JPEG and PNG. Doesn't mean that you cannot use JPEG or PNG pictures, but you can still use them. Yes, exactly. So now whenever you are working with images, you don't tamper with the image height, you get, or width, yeah, but you have to use one of them. So you don't tamper with the width and height together. Either you use width or you use height, so that the browser now knows how to wrap his head now to make sure that the image now comes out responsive and well structured, not as if you are dragging the image now from Adam, yes, on your website. So now look as if it's being stretched. Now adding a horizontal line in HTML is just HL, you just, yeah, enter key, you have like a straight line that is going to be here when you open it on your browser. You can still do that in HTML by writing the keyword called center, then wrapping the image tag now inside the center tag. And remember that the center tag has the opening and closing tag. Yes, we have the alternative text, which is the ALT for the image, which describe the image. So we have add a background image. Add a background image now give you, is inside CSS, to talk about it in CSS, so just know about that. So I've already talked about sizes of images, yeah. So without further ado, we've talked about links also, link to email and some other things. We also talked about tables. This table, right, you see here, yeah, I've not come across any website that utilizes table tag to do anything. Doesn't mean that you cannot use table tag, you can still use it, but there are other simpler method you can still replicate the same action as which the table tag now is performing, yes, using CSS. So now this is CSS, my friend. Are you with me? Hello? So now if you look at here now, in the CSS we have type selector, universal selector, descender selector, class selector, id selector, child selector, attribute selector, and multi-style rule. Exactly. So within, oops, within with them little by little. So now let's S, right? So you can see, so style of CSS, we have to now do our linking by writing link. Now basically means calling the CSS tag. Sorry, I said calling the CSS tag, calling calling the HTML see, basically means calling the HTML tag in CSS and applying style to it. That is what it literally means. For example, so if we want to color the entire whole page now of our website, we can do body, which is a tag in HTML, and just do background color. Let's do Rebecca. You can see now Rebecca purple. So if you right click here, open with live server, I'll just do maybe a comment, css what, let me just call it type selector, type selector css comment. Here now will affect the entire whole page. So if I write font family, a vertical sans serif, for example, all the old website now. Hello. Makes sense. I like that. So this is the sender selector. It is used to select the element that is a descendant of another element. So now this is what we're going to do at this particular dispensation. So I'm going to copy this, I'll come here, then I'm going to give an example of the descendant selector. So let me paste it here, comment here, and do this. So for example, let's assume we have, you can see now, right, we're having this paragraph, right, we're having heading 1, can you see it? So now you can see that this container now is a word parent. Why all these ones now are what? Children of this parent. Do you understand? So all these ones are children. Let me just do modify, make this a descendant now, right? So it's going to be color of white. But if I want to access only the color, I want to access this h1 now, make only this particular h1 color to be white. What I have to do is I have to use the descendant by calling the container. So the container, so the name of the container, the name of that class now is container. So we have to write container, right? h1, do background dash color red, then color white. No, okay, now see here, let me show you something. If I write padding here, for example, I know padding now is a space inside a content, while margin is a space outside. Now, but the most one people like using is px. Instead of using px, you can use rem, you can use m, you can use so many other relative and absolute units. it is is advisable to use the one you are conversant with. For me, I mostly use px. Sometimes I use rem. Now let me explain the difference between px and rem so that you understand and you won't get confused now from next time. So see, this is how we do the calculation. So see, 1 px, one okay, sorry, 1 rem is equals to 16 px. Can you see it? So if I write 1 rem here like this, and I'm saying 16 px, you understand? If you don't want like px, use percent. But mostly the most unit that is mostly used that I've seen is px, percent, and rem and m. Those are the units I've seen that's mostly used. But for me, I use px most often. Yes, most of the time. Yeah. That sometimes I can now say, okay, I don't want to use px, I want to use rem. So if I'm using rem here, if I write 1 rem here now, for example, the computer already knows that I'm writing 16 px. And remember, your screen is made up of pixels, so you are dealing with pixels most of the time, because when you work with all these values now, you are increasing the pixels that makes up the entire whole GUI of your screen, which is graphical user interface. Exactly. So at this particular point in time, right, it's your choice to use px, it's your choice to use rem. But the difference is just that if you use one might be bigger. I can use maybe 10 px here now, paste it here. The only difference is that one is class and one is id, and are two things. Alright, I just want to reload. So let me change it to orange. So this other one, I can give it a different background color. See, I like my cursor at this point. So if you notice now, all my code now used to be at this line, background dash color. So let's see which color now I'm going to use now. Let me try this. See, it is used to select the element that's the child of another element. Now remember, I told you that this one is called descendant, right? Are you with me? If I duplicate this h1 now into multi, so if I do dot, no, let me not do dot container, let me do hash container greater than h1 of another element. The child selector is denoted by greater greater sign between the parent and the child. Exactly. So if you look at here now, this one now is the parent container, this one now is the child. So to identify, to make sure that okay, they are all children, like this is an example of a perfect child selector in CSS. and this is a perfect descendant selector. So now let's do another example, one more example to end everything. So here now I have all these guys. Now let me do the child greater than h1. So hello world. If you go back to my style, the child is our parent, and this h I want to access the children of container, which is h1. So we are having only 3 h1 to and make the h1 red color. So that means at this particular dispensation we are having 2 parents. One is this parent and the second one is this child parent that is here, that has this h1 here. Do you understand? I should go on, right? Okay, I should go on, right? All right. So attribute, yes, the attribute selected to select an element based on their attributes. Can use the attributes to select them rather than using the class or the id to access them. So one of the example that we have is all right. So now we're going form action now basically means the place that we process the information that is being written by the user. Like for example, let me give you an example. Mute your voice first. Just mute. Now Facebook most of the times or some other websites, when you fill information and you click on that submit button, there is a file that has a huge amount of functions that checkmate what the user has written. So that file now can just be any name. It's being written by the programmer. So the file now is now going to check what the user has written on that file, on that form. It's going to check whether when you ask for email address, it's going to check whether it's correct email address, whether the email address is the standard email address that everybody using around the world, whether it's going to check for everything you've written, and it's going to check for inputs that are not empty. Then before it now carry the information and save it inside the database where it will now be stored, or you can do any other analysis that the website is supposed to do. So that's the thing. Do you understand? That is the work of action. What will happen to the inputs that user is inputting? Celebrate grace for knowing that. Amen. So now let's move. So thanks for my VS Code for this AI feature that is being embedded here, that give me the ability for me to write code more faster than stressing my fingers. Now you can see that we have label input button. So we're going to use this now to illustrate the attribute selector in CSS. Now what I want to use text as an example, class user name, like this. You understand? I can give it a class and call it username, but no, I will not do that. Yes, so let's use the attribute instead of giving it a class called username. Exactly. Yes, let me check. Yes, still recording.